Ladies and gentlemen, coming soon, a podcast you've all been waiting for. The movie podcast to end all movie podcasts. A podcast that discusses and critiques the best of the best and the worst of the worst movies playing at a theater near you. With a host whose opinions have been deemed as fact by your favorite fact checkers. And that's a fact. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the movie maestro, the tyrant of theater, the gumshoe of review, the man that makes theater employees and Hollywood execs shiver by his mere presence. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge, the jury, the sultan of cinema, Justin Henson. Welcome to the Movie Wire.
Welcome to this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I'm your host, Justin Henson, and welcome to the show. We have a fantastic show this week with a couple of movies about video games that we all grew up with. This week, I have 4 brand new reviews, 2 now playing in theaters, and 2 brand new for streaming. This week on the show, Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston return to solve another mystery in the sequel to the Netflix original movie, Murder Mystery 2. The most exciting movie you will ever see about a puzzle game aligning shapes in the hard-to-believe true story that is now streaming on Apple TV Plus in Tetris. A rookie cop alone in a decommissioned police station faces the paranormal in the remake to 2014's Last Shift in Malum. And finally, the Mario Brothers hit the big screen in the long-awaited film adaptation of the popular game in the Super Mario Brothers movie. And I just want to note that the new Owen Wilson film, Paint, did release this week, in which I did an early review for. If you want to listen to that review, you can take a listen on episode 64. We have a lot to cover, so let's get into it. Ready for my verdict?
Let's go.
Out of the windows to watch a roar and a burst of flame. The Movie Wire podcast.
There it is.
We just need people like me.
The Wire. And here we go.
An enterprising game developer risks everything in a race to outmaneuver duplicitous insiders to negotiate a deal with the Soviet Union bureaucrats for the international licensing rights to what would be eventually become one of the most recognizable and widely played games in history in the Apple TV Plus original, Tetris.
It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I played for 5 minutes. I still see falling blocks in my dreams. It's poetry, art, and math all working in magical synchronicity. It's the perfect game. Tetris?
Tetris.
Tetris. Tetris.
Tetris. I don't get it.
It's a combination of tetra, Greek for 4, and tennis.
Tennis.
The Russian inventor, he likes tennis.
This game isn't just addictive. It stays with you. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Hank, only 10 other people in the world have seen what you're about to see. It's called the Game Boy.
Package it with Tetris.
Can you get us the rights?
The Soviet Union had worldwide rights. Nothing gets out easily.
I'm gonna go to Moscow.
You sure you don't have to talk to your wife about this first?
Pioneers have to bet the house to win.
But not literally.
Listen, have you ever heard our apartment this quiet before?
This is the inventor of Tetris.
Your game is brilliant. I'm gonna make you a millionaire.
Mr. Hodges, have you ever negotiated with the Soviets?
We're here for Tetris.
Вы все здесь только ради денег.
What do you say? I don't speak Russian.
The most powerful man in Communist Party is watching you and your family.
Do you know where your husband is?
What the hell is going on?
The world is changing, and Soviet Union will not be left behind.
You want to play with the big boys? This is how the world works.
We can't protect you.
Sometimes you gotta forget the rules.
Go, 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 go!
This is criminal.
The Soviet Union is about to implode. They're lying. Everybody's lying.
Go home. The cavalry is coming.
We don't have time. I have a plan. Oh, come on. You guys are the kings of cliffhangers.
Now, of course, Tetris is the classic tile-matching puzzle game, has been a beloved pastime for decades. In the new film Tetris, directed by John S. Bard and starring Taron Egerton, is a completely unexpected triumph that manages to take the true story of a conceptual, simplistic game and turn it into an enthralling, engaging, and at times hard-to-believe story. But one thing is for sure is that you won't see a more entertaining and well-written true story so far in 2023 as we see in Tetris. The film tells the incredibly wild, surprising, insane, and it will guarantee you will never look at the game Tetris in the same way again. This is an absolutely insane story of a production and distribution of one of the most popular games of the 80s. But the things that happened prior to the release of Tetris is not as simple as the concept of the game itself, nor as fun as what happened behind the scenes. Where we have businessman Hank Rogers, played by Egerton, who puts everything on the line from his house, family, and life. Then we have the inventor of Tetris, Alexei, played by Nikita Efremov, who risks everything to team up with Rogers, and he faces the consequence from his government to bring Tetris to the masses. One of the most impressive things about Tetris is how it manages to balance so many different elements without ever feeling cluttered, bloated, or overly paced. The film tackles espionage, betrayal, emotion, politics, and even some light humor. It weaves all this together seamlessly. The film also manages to delve into some deeper themes such as tension between individual creativity and government control, without ever feeling heavy-handed or opinionated. It stays completely neutral through the entire runtime. Tetris manages to capture and navigate the addictive nature of the game by utilizing the performances and descriptions, and not having the audience sit through a synopsis of the actual product itself. These are filmmakers that know their audience. Bard and his team do an incredible job with keeping with the subtle fun tone, but at the same time adds a sense of stress, just like the feeling of playing the actual game. It taps into the audience's nostalgic state and uses this to its emotional advantage to demand the attention from the viewer. The amazing skill that the filmmakers use isn't by focusing on the product itself. It doesn't do this by relying on just the game or game consoles, but including the setting and time period with a musical score that is completely on point. The brilliant score, along with the placement of the 8-bit graphics that director John Bard inserts into the movie, creates and adds more to the experience or journey, if you will. Bard inserts a lot of 8-bit cutscenes to introduce different key moments. And it is a nice touch and helps add to the nostalgic feeling and a respectful nod to the game systems of the 80s. It's a very soft but nice touch by the filmmakers that I really did enjoy. This includes a fun, but I have to say unnecessary inclusion of the 8-bit graphics during a scene during the climax. Even though unnecessary, with it teamed up with the musical score, you can't help but have some fun with it. The performances in Tetris are uniformly excellent. Egerton is a standout as Hank Rogers, and the supporting cast is absolutely fantastic. More specifically, Toby Jones as Robert Stein. Now, each of the characters do have a layer of depth, and this is what's really missed based on true stories that don't involve celebrities. They usually give a generic version of this character without deep diving into what makes them tick. And they never really give us a looking glass, but rather a generic interpretation of that character. But here, every character adds a layer upon layer, not only in complexity, but each character tends to layer over each other in terms of driving the story to almost a chaotic feel, but a good chaotic feel. Tetris was written by newcomer Noah Pink, whose only real writing credit comes from 2017's well-written but poorly executed thriller, The Show. Pink has an intensity to his writing that shines, and it's the words that just linger in your head well after the movie is over. It was true with his movie The Show, and it is true with Tetris. We take a lot of screenwriters out there that write their screenplays with the intent to try and make every single line as they want it to go down in film history as memorable. And some can portray Noah Pink as this kind of writer, but I would disagree that there is a difference between passion in writing versus having a writer have a vision around a handful of what they think would be memorable lines and have to fill in the blanks in the story to try to get these lines delivered. Where Tetris really succeeds is to tell a story that is focused of importance of not only telling the story of the production and distribution of an individual game, but also the frightening reality of international government control over the power of creative and people's finances. The film intertwines and balances a mountain of challenges, topics, and each one of the many subplots Tetris covers never seems out of place nor irrelevant, but grows the importance to a satisfying and exciting climax. Tetris is a movie that is surprisingly fascinating, fun, and engaging, that manages to bring the classic game true story to life in a unique and unexpected way. This is true storytelling at its best, where we are engulfed by the events that unfolded and we take something away after viewing. I found myself Googling like crazy about this true story. The story of Tetris is engaging and well-paced with a satisfying conclusion that pays off the film's themes and perseverance and determination. And this is thanks to the performances and the screenplay by Noah Pink. I was taken back and pleasantly surprised by Tetris. It is a great example of how video games and true stories can inspire when it's done correctly with great storytelling with confidence, and it is sure to appeal to fans of all ages. Whether you're a diehard Tetris player or just looking for a fun and entertaining movie, Tetris is definitely worth a watch, and it is available on Apple TV Plus right now. I'm giving Tetris 3.5 stars. Now, before we get into the rest of the show, make sure to check out my reviews on previous episodes for movies that just became available to rent, buy, and stream now. Now available. 65 million years ago, prehistoric Earth had a visitor in 65, which should have stayed extinct, receiving 1.5 stars. Oh my gods, that didn't take long in theaters. Shazam! Fury of the Gods is now available for streaming in the short-lived theatrical release, which Shazammed its way to 3 stars. After years of waiting, we go back to Pandora in the James Cameron sequel to the #1 box office smash of all time in Avatar: Way of the Water, which swimmed its way to 3 stars. And finally, Woody Harrelson is ordered by the court to coach a basketball team with intellectual disabilities in Champions, which missed the basket at 2 stars. You can find those reviews on my previous episodes, and just a reminder, if you haven't yet, make sure you hit follow or subscribe, and don't forget to leave me a review on Apple Podcasts. And make sure you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd at Movie Wire Show. And lastly, it's that time in the Seattle area again where we're having the Snohomish Film Festival. You can now submit your film no matter where you're at into the festival by going to www.filmfreeway.com/Snohomish Film Festival. We have had some outstanding submissions this year. I cannot believe the amount of talent we have. Do not wait to submit your movie to the last minute. This is going to be a great year, and I cannot wait to see your movie. After the events of 2019's original murder mystery, full-time detectives Nick and Audrey are struggling to get their private eye agency off the ground. They find themselves at the center of an international abduction when their friend is kidnapped at his own lavish wedding in the Netflix original Murder Mystery 2.
Yo, Raja! Yo, Nick, the Maharaja is getting married! What? This weekend, I'm on new private island, and I want you to come.
Honey, do you remember what happened last time we went on a getaway?
Yeah, some people died.
Not a lot of people.
You think 5 people dying's a lot?
Okay.
Nick and Audrey! Oh my God!
Have you ever seen anything like this? A gift box.
Earrings?
My phone.
Those are gonna get you in trouble.
You promise?
Oh. How handsome are you, man?
I only have eyes for you.
And now it's time for Gloom!
Not the Maharaja. This is a distraction.
From what?
From the escape. The Maharaja's been kidnapped. And all of you are suspects.
We're not going to be invited anywhere ever again.
The real detectives have arrived.
You must be the Spitzers.
Yes.
Your reputations precedes you.
There you go.
Not in a positive way, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Okay.
Deliver $50 million to the Arc de Triomphe in Paris when the Maharaja dies.
Well, you always wanted to go to Paris.
Give us the money.
All right, you got it. Shoot this guy! I don't want to kill anybody! Oh! What? Oh my God! That's not what I planned!
Where did he come from?
He's gonna walk right into the flame.
Walked right in.
He's got the case.
Now I'm very confused.
that rambunctious Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston are back as married couple Nick and Audrey, and this is one of those chemistries that was the only real positive from the first film. Now, let's be honest, when we turn on an Adam Sandler comedy, we know exactly what we're going to get. A silly story, silly situation, silly characters, and the fact it's scary how many times we end up just having a good time with a lot of Adam Sandler's movies. The thing I will give credit to Sandler is that even at his worst movie, his on-screen likability is always present. And you can tell that his personal likability is there when the cameras are off, because of the natural chemistry him and his co-stars share when they're on screen. You can tell him and his cast are having an absolutely good time. Now, with that said, Murder Mystery 2 is a disappointing sequel that fails to capture the silly, absurd charm and humor of Sandler's previous films. While Murder Mystery 2 has a promising premise in terms of what we see in the first half, it ultimately falls flat with a weak script and lackluster performances, especially with Sandler, that I will get into in just 1 second. The film follows Nick and Audrey as they attend a wedding on a luxurious island, only to find themselves caught up in yet another mystery. However, the plot feels contrived and predictable, with a few attempts at surprises or twists to try and keep the audiences engaged. And I hate to call them twists or surprises because this is an Adam Sandler murder mystery. You think this is going to be mind-blowing? It's absolutely not. These attempts at twists and turns and surprises fall flat, which most people will solve within a few minutes if they use their gut feeling. It's that lazy and basic. If you think an Adam Sandler murder mystery will have a mind-bending twist, trust me, if you feel you know the answer in your gut, you're probably right, and you've probably solved the case within the first half of the movie. The humor of Adam Sandler in Murder Mystery, which was a highlight of the original film, also falls completely on its face, with many of the jokes feeling forced and unfunny. Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston, who were the heart of the original film, they seem to be just going through the motions here with little chemistry or energy in their performances. Now, more specifically, Adam Sandler, that looks like he really doesn't want to be there. His performance is that of somebody waking up from a hangover in the morning. It's sluggish, it lacks energy. It's like he's being blackmailed for just being there. With the rest of the cast, we get the same vibe. There's a complete lack of energy here, in which as the movie progresses, the energy gets lower and lower, and at times can make the movie feel like a chore to watch. Now, there is a fantastic funny performance in this movie and an ongoing gag, and this was from John Connie, who repraises his role as Colonel Unlega, who is the only consistent funny part of the movie, who seems to be the only person really having fun with his character whenever he's on screen. As for the rest of the cast, they are completely underutilized. There are some great supporting characters, but they add little comedic value. You can see the potential with all these characters, but the film never utilizes it, with most of the characters feeling just one-dimensional and forgettable because the movie doesn't give them the opportunity to shine. They kind of just plop these characters into different scenes and they feel very thrown in without any depth or context. Now, when it comes to sloppy filmmaking, the film's production values are also lacking here, with uninspired cinematography and a lack of visual flair. Now, the locations, while beautiful, feel like more than window dressing, with no real sense of place or atmosphere. First half of the movie, we are taken to a beautiful tropical island where we do have some great atmosphere and some fun vibes. But then it goes into the second half where we see Nick and Audrey in Paris, and this is completely underutilized in the setting. Paris is always dark and never really shows the true beauty of the environment. The setting is a waste if the filmmakers are just going to show everything at nighttime with no substance. The film might as well have been shot in a dark closet. And this is where the film lacks fun factor, is when we get a consistent dark tone with no substance, the film starts to drag and it never really has that fun factor. Now, Murder Mystery does have some potential in the first half where it does have a fun element to it, but as we get into the actual plot, it has no idea where it wants to go. I feel the filmmakers and writer James Vanderbilt felt the need to be required to include a mystery just because of the title, and they were scared to go away from that formula and try anything new. The best scene of the movie was in the first act where we see Nick and Audrey on a cheating sting operation where a wife hires them to catch her husband cheating, and this kind of humor in this scene reminded me of the humor of the old stakeout movies. The filmmakers don't know true gold when they have it, and as we get past this scene, this is where Murder Mystery loses its muster of what made the first film at least tolerable. The first film at least self-realized what kind of movie it wanted to be. And I'm not saying the first film was necessarily good, but at least it was an okay time killer for a movie made for streaming. But I will give the film credit when it comes to pacing, even though the fun factor is severely lacking here. The movie never really slows down, it's always on the move doing something. It's like spending a day with a 2-year-old that didn't sleep at all the previous night, and then in the morning having 2 cups of sugar for breakfast. The child is tired but can't just sit down and be entertained. It always has to be on the move, and by the end of the day, we feel we need to take a nap along with the child. This cast look and feel like they need a nap, and by the time the credits rolled, I felt I needed a 12-hour nap. Murder Mystery 2 is a forgettable and disappointing sequel to the original, which is already an average movie. While it may appeal to the die-hard fans of Adam Sandler or Jennifer Aniston, it's not likely to appeal to anyone else, but even hardcore fans will take notice in its lack of energy along with the fun factor. If you're looking for a fun, entertaining murder mystery, there are far better options out there. May I suggest watching Glass Onion for the 10th time? I'm giving Murder Mystery 2 2 stars. Now, I have an announcement to make that I have had the pleasure of dropping by and visiting with my good friend Dan over on his current episode of the Casting Views podcast, where Dan once again makes me talk about something other than movies. I decided to take Dan by surprise and make things a little spicy and a little bit naughty. I had an absolutely fantastic time on the Casting Views, full of laughs and interesting conversation. That episode is now live, and I am telling you, this is one not to miss. Casting Views is an amazing podcast that I listen to religiously, but not only to hear Dan's best toned-down Simon Cowell impression for an hour, but because he covers some of the most interesting and entertaining topics that will have you hooked. The link to that episode will be in the description of this episode, and don't forget to listen, follow, and subscribe to the Casting Views podcast after you listen to the rest of my episode, preferably. Let's hear from the Casting Views now.
Fancy taking a humorous trip down a random topic each week? You do? Well, you're in luck. Casting Views, presented by me, Dan, and a host of guests, bring you just that. With topics from the world of entertainment, science, sport, and everyday life, there's bound to be a topic that's going to inform and amuse. Catch Casting Views every Sunday on all listening platforms now.
A rookie police officer willingly takes the last shift at a newly decommissioned police station in the attempt to uncover the mysterious connection between her father's death and a vicious cult in the new horror film Malum.
I can see the fear in your eyes. You saw something you can't explain.
This way, rookie. Call's been rerouted to the new station, so it should be quiet. If there's an emergency, the station's number's on the desk.
Sure, I'll be fine.
Hello?
Told us that Captain Lauren's daughter would be joining the department.
Yes, sir. Just want to work where my father worked, even if it's for one night.
He was a hero. Until he wasn't, you know.
Lanford Police Department.
You don't know what happened, but your father was no saint.
Your daddy started something very important.
Tonight we're gonna finish it.
The Temple Baron will bring forth the low god, and I will be Redeemer. Infamous Malum.
I can't do this anymore. Just get me out.
We pray in the temple of the low god.
Based on the 2014 film Last Shift comes Malum. Now, I remember when I watched the 2014's Last Shift, it was an interesting concept. A police officer keeping an eye on an old police station by herself with supernatural events happening. It added a unique setting with our police officer main character that already faces scary situations every day. And this has a setup for an interesting narrative of fear with a unique secluded setting. But the problem we have with the first film is a runtime of more questions and missed opportunities. Now, it took 9 years for another vision of this concept to be reimagined, and this is where I get frustrated with remakes like this, where filmmakers take a picture like this and dissect it so much to attempt to separate itself and stand on its own to the point it forgets it's a remake. The audience knows it's a remake, but the filmmakers want it to be their own so much they take away from the entire concept of the little things, even if the film wasn't mind-blowing. And then they miss that there were little things that The Last Shift did so well when it comes to atmosphere, tone, and balancing the moments of safe versus terrifying. This is where I get even more frustrated. The biggest piece that scared me more than this movie is the actual fact it is written and directed by the same creators from the 2014 version. Malum and Last Shift was written and directed by Anthony DiBlasi, with a writing credit of Scott Poley, and again, both of whom created the original film. This isn't a revision rather than a creator's redo, and sadly I would say maybe in another 9 years we can shoot for a third time the charm, but sadly this one went backwards in terms of practicality. I would be terrified to see what these filmmakers would do with the concept. But DiBlasi does do something magical in this film. He single-handedly takes an increased studio budget and makes it suddenly disappear with nothing to show for it, other than the filmmaker that makes a lazy attempt to create a spectacle versus scares, which goes to show just because you throw money at a project doesn't mean it will make it better, given Malum's production value looks all nice and shiny, but lacks any real sense of thrill or danger. And most of that money went into the production design, where everything does look more high budget, but here's my problem with high budgets from practical movies is the fact you lose a little bit of that attention to detail in the environment lighting and then the special attention to the practical effect. And bigger budgets usually mean more people involved, shorter deadlines, and more polishing versus substance, and this rushes the story along to meet deadlines and budgets. Malum in the first half of the movie does add more context and depth to the police station story, which does a fantastic job at setting up the movie with a sense of mystery. And I will give it this, it is a better setup than the original movie and does get the audience engaged with a great performance from our single officer played by Jessica Sula, who gives us a stern but believable performance most of the time. When the supernatural events keep occurring, her progression of the fear doesn't heighten, but rather gives the audience a more frustrated behavior. Now, I don't know if that was DiBlasi's intent or Sula's interpretation. It wasn't clear, and the fact it wasn't clear means it was not successful completely. And this could be due to the fact that the transitions between the characters versus the environment goes from 0 to 100 miles an hour. The film hits chaos into a supernatural spectacle in no time with a poorly executed pace and transition, where I felt I was standing in line for an hour for a theme park ride. And finally, the ride takes off only to show us fake-looking animatronics and effects. The final half of the movie, I felt like I was riding an adult version of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride and the Haunted Mansion, where DiBlasi throws a lot of fast-motion shots where I am kinda glad he did, because the effects he uses covers everything in blood and gore to cover the generic creatures that we see. But this strategy is a double-edged sword, because at one point I had to close my eyes, not from the scares, but rather reset my eyes like someone kept shining a flashlight directly at me. The original film at least kept the suspense and took its time to build the tension, and though its production value lacked, it was still 100 times more thrilling than this film. The only credit I can give this movie, other than the production design, is the fact that it does show a level of confidence in its story and sticks to its guns on where it wants to take it, but you can blatantly see DiBlasi's lack of knowledge on how to execute it. Malum would have been better off taking the first film and just sprucing up the production design and having more realistic lighting and supernatural visuals, and just called it a day. Malum, in contrast to the original version, is a forgettable theme park ride that breaks down halfway through and you're stuck watching the ride's environment decorations with the lights flashing on and off. Malum is now my go-to example of how more money doesn't mean it will make it better, but encourages the filmmaker to lose vision and passion if his head's not in the right spot. Increased budgets forces creative minds to compensate with shiny objects, and at times this movie shows an overconfidence but can be complicit in its filmmaking. I'm giving Malum 1.5 stars. It It's so hard to keep track and even have time to read all the trending topics on the web. Now there's a new app to help with all of those problems. Newsly is an audio app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about the most trending topics on the web at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time in the history of the internet, the entire web becomes listenable. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, science, to Bitcoin. You can even follow Kardashian. It will find you the latest articles and read them to you out loud. And guess what? They have podcasts as well. Explore trending podcasts from over 50 countries. The Movie Wire is now a featured podcast on the Newsly app. Download and use Newsly for free now. The link will be in the description of this episode. You can also use one of my promo codes that you will find in the description as well to get you a 1-month free premium subscription. Stop scrolling, start listening, download Newsly today. The Mario brothers find themselves in the Mushroom Kingdom with the help of Princess Peach. Mario gets ready to square off against the all-powerful Bowser to stop his plans from conquering the world in the Super Mario Brothers movie. Okay.
Not sure if you know who I am, but I'm about to rule the world.
Wow, yay.
But there's one problem. There's a human, has a mustache, just like you.
You think I know every human being with a mustache wearing an identical outfit with a hat with the letter of his first name on it? Because I don't.
Bowser is coming. Together, we are going to stop that monster.
How? Look at us. We're adorable.
I got this. No problem. Yes!
Come on, Mario! Our big adventure begins now!
Ah! Get it off! Get it off! Get it off!
There's a huge universe out there.
Whoa.
With a lot of galaxies. They're all counting on us. Mario! No pressure.
It's been a long time in the making before we eventually got a new Super Mario Brothers movie, and now here it is with a whole new look by Illumination Animation. Now, there has been a lot of Mario games released since we got the original 1993 film adaptation of the Mario Brothers movies, with a lot of ideas and stories to go off of. There is a lot of material to shine through the writing and story. Super Mario was written by Matthew Fogel, who originally wrote Minions: A Rise of Gru and the story to the Lego Movie 2. And let's not forget the sequel that will stand the test of time as one of the best movies ever made and was snubbed at the Oscars the year it came out. I'm talking about the third installment of the Big Mama House movies, Big Mama Like Father Like Son. For those of you that can't sense my sarcasm, here's the disclaimer. It was sarcastic. Now, with all the ideas from the years and years of material from the games to the TV show, God forbid we have a story that is interesting. This movie has no interesting story. Fogel writes in as much nostalgic inserts, nods, cameos as he can possibly fit on a page, so much that he forgot to write an interesting story around these classic characters. And the ending result comes across as years of video game cutscenes that are all woven together in an attempt to make a story, with placing our characters in situations that we have already seen before in video games pass. Of course, we take an already popular license and we have to pump it full of an all-star voice cast of Chris Pratt, who plays our Mario, Anya Taylor-Joy as Princess Peach, Charlie Day as Luigi, Jack Black as Bowser, and Seth Rogen as our Donkey Kong. With this all-star cast, the only standouts of that being Charlie Day as Luigi and Anya Taylor-Joy as Peach, who both come across as a natural fit. The other voice cast didn't really add any value to their animated character as memorable, and that's not to say that they did a horrible job here, but it is consistent with how I felt about the movie, which is just a mere meh. With the exception of Jack Black as Bowser, there is little personality that shines through their animated characters. We have Chris Pratt that changes his voice to a slight slur or mumble to attempt an accent like he's a drunken introvert in a crowded bar. And then we have Seth Rogen that does no attempt of a voice match to his character other than just speak his lines. And I'm sorry, Seth Rogen to just do a Seth Rogen voice on Donkey Kong annoyed the hell out of me. It didn't work for me in the slightest. Now, when we make animated films, I usually go twice to attempt to put myself in the eyes of kids, and I pay attention to the noises, the sounds around me, and then I go another time to really focus on the film on screen. This is a property, even though animated, isn't just a target for kids, but rather 4 decades of fans that grew up with these classic characters. So the film does have a tall order to fill, and I will give a little bit of leeway to this when it comes to the audience satisfaction, and of course it is impossible to please the large fan base, especially with the viewers that have all grown up or introduced with different versions of the games and characters. But sadly, the target is more towards the current generation, and I can't say I blame the studio for this. An animated feature of the Super Mario Bros. Should target today's youngsters, but its attempt at shoving so much nostalgic flavoring into a short 90-minute runtime feels like a desperate attempt to try to please everybody, and the story feels bloated and flows like the video game cutscenes spliced together. The filmmakers must have known this was going to be targeted towards today's youth, which would explain the A-list voice cast to attract adults along with the concept of the loved video game characters. As a kid and then adult and a huge fan of the Super Mario games, I was felt let down by such an average film. But what the target the filmmakers went for was successful. As I listened and observed during the film in a nearly sold out theater jam-packed with kids, there was something wrong. Something that didn't feel right. It was an eerie feeling that brought paranoia and chills down my spine. The theater was full of kids, and the theater remained quiet. No talking, no creaking or thumping of theater seats, no kids stomping down the aisle to see how loud their shoes can be on the carpet. The kids in the theater were completely entertained, and I give credit to the filmmakers for this, especially directors Aaron Horvath, Michael Jelinek, and Pierre Ludic, who all in which have done numerous animation projects, with Horvath and Jelinek specializing in a lot of straight-to-digital or DVD movies, including a lot of Teen Titan Go, Batman, and Scooby-Doo. And Ludic, who got a co-directing credit, was a lead animator for the Despicable Me and Minion movies. There's a lot of bubblegum for the mind to keep kids entertained, and they will love this movie. Super Mario Bros. Is never boring, even though jam-packed full of characters and nods that the studio seemed to have a checklist to go down to ensure they included everything. This does keep the pace going, like placing new toys in front of kids every 5 minutes, what adults will appreciate and love, even if they don't really pay attention to the amount of detail in movies, is the absolutely amazing score and soundtrack. This is so good. It is nearly impossible to miss. It is the absolute star of the film. The composition and the use of game nods and score to ensure it falls in unison together along with what we see on screen is, dare I say, near perfection when it comes to not only filmmaking, but composing. Now, the most common name people tie movies to music composition and conducting is John Williams. He brought music composition to a household name. But mark my words, the next household name we will hear is Brian Taylor after this film. Brian Taylor is responsible for countless film compositions that we have all heard in movies, along with conducting many scores. This, hands down, is his most memorable movie that deserves recognition. The Super Mario Bros. Will not blow any minds and will be memorable for the mere fact of how many of our favorite characters are shoved into this bloated movie. As adults, many of us will shrug our shoulders at the story, but we'll still have some fun with the characters on screen. But here's the thing, our kids will absolutely fall in love with what they're viewing on screen. They will love the underdog hero concept and the fast pacing, and parents will be grateful for not having to say, shh, every 5 minutes, or even chase their kids around the theater. There are a lot of fun moments, but by the time the credits roll, you start to look at a lot of the missed opportunity that piles up. And those of us that grew up with the Super Mario Brothers feel left out when it comes to a more creative story. It doesn't show us anything new. The story is weak, but the pacing and music carry the adults along for the ride. But even with that said, here is the deal. This is one of those movies that we rarely get. As a parent, this is a perfect chance to open up a conversation and introduce your kids to the movie-going experience, where you go where you both have a common ground, where you have an interest in a topic that you're seeing on screen. This is what the movie-going experience is about, to have that conversation and have that relation of dialogue when you leave the theater. But I am not going to base a review on the conversation you have with your kids when you leave the theater. It is just a mere reminder of the perfect opportunity you have. Based on everything I saw on screen, I'm giving the Super Mario Brothers movie 2.5 stars. And that's a cut on this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I want to thank you for listening and thank you for your support. You can also show support by following me on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd at Movie Wire Show. Until next week, do me a favor, make sure you stay for after the credits to show the respect to those that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making a feature film, and support your local movie theaters.
A verdict has been made on this episode of The Movie Wire by your host, Justin Henson. He thanks you for listening to the show. You can follow Justin on Instagram and Twitter at Movie Wire Show, or visit his website, www.themoviewire.com. Oh, and don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we will see you at the movies.
Thank you for bringing me to the movies.